Welcome, business leaders and innovators. Today, we are taking a strategic approach to Microsoft 365 Copilot. We won't just be looking at its features. Our main focus will be identifying exactly how to map your specific business processes and use cases directly to Copilot's capabilities. By doing this, we can drive massive, measurable returns on investment. Let's get started. Let's begin by defining the engine we are working with. Microsoft 365 Copilot is a sophisticated orchestration engine that provides AI-powered productivity by coordinating large language models with your Microsoft 365 apps and your enterprise data. The basics are simple. Copilot sits inside the tools you already use every day, like Word, Excel, and Teams. Why is this so revolutionary? Because it fundamentally boosts productivity by automating repetitive tasks and improves decision quality with data-driven insights. How does it achieve this? Through the Microsoft Graph. When you ask Copilot a question, it grounds your prompt in your specific emails, chats, and documents to ensure the response is highly relevant. For our deep dive, it is critical to understand security. Copilot operates securely within your Microsoft 365 service boundary. It only retrieves information that the specific user already has permission to access, meaning your enterprise data remains secure and compliant. Let's take a look at the architecture diagram on your screen. It illustrates exactly how a Copilot interaction flows. Starting on the left, a user enters a prompt directly into a Microsoft 365 app. Before that prompt hits the AI model, it passes through the Microsoft Graph for grounding. Notice the dotted line pointing to user permissions enforce. This is vital. The graph ensures only data the user can access is retrieved. This grounded data is then sent to the Azure OpenAI large language model, which processes it and sends back a highly contextual response. Understanding this secure flow is the first step in recognizing why we can safely map our most critical business processes to this technology. Now that we know how Copilot works, we must identify where to deploy it. What makes a good Copilot use case? AI delivers the greatest business impact in areas where complexity and repetition slow human progress down. The basics of process mapping require us to look for workflows that are specifically document-heavy, data-heavy, or meeting-heavy. Why do we use this categorization? Because if we just apply AI randomly, we end up with low return on investment. By identifying these specific friction points, we ensure the technology solves real pain points. How do we map them? We evaluate our daily operations. For example, if a team spends hours drafting policies, that is a document-heavy process ripe for automation. For our deep dive strategy, I always advise leaders to start small. Begin with 1 or 2 processes that directly impact revenue, compliance, or customer experience. You measure the time saved, prove the ROI, and only then scale the solution across the rest of the organization. This mind map provides a visual triage system for your workflows. On the left, we start with your overarching business workflows. They immediately branch into our 3 core target areas. Follow the top branch. Document-heavy processes map directly to Copilot's drafting and summarizing capabilities. The middle branch shows that data-heavy processes map to analysis and forecasting. Finally, the bottom branch shows meeting-heavy processes mapping seamlessly to action items and recaps. When department heads bring you processes they want to automate, use this diagram to quickly categorize the request and validate if Copilot is the right tool for the job. Let's zoom in on our first category, document-heavy processes. What does this mapping look like? It involves using Copilot to radically accelerate how we create, refine, and summarize text-based assets. The basics map perfectly to Microsoft Word and PowerPoint. Why is this so valuable? Think about the blank page syndrome. When a marketing team needs to draft a campaign brief, or a compliance team needs to update a policy, it historically takes days. With Copilot, they can generate a first draft in minutes, reducing turnaround time from days to hours. How is this executed? A user simply prompts Copilot in Word to generate a draft based on an existing set of files. Or, in PowerPoint, they can prompt it to transform those ideas into a polished presentation instantly. The deep dive value here is consistency. Because Copilot is grounded in your Microsoft Graph, it uses your existing, approved files as reference, ensuring the new drafts maintain your specific brand voice and internal compliance standards. Look at this flowchart to see a document-heavy workflow in action. We start at the top with a marketing campaign need. This maps directly to Copilot in Word, which automatically drafts the initial brief based on your historical data. A human then reviews and refines this draft, keeping the human in the loop. Next, this refined document flows into Copilot in PowerPoint. Instead of spending hours on slide design, Copilot generates the visual deck automatically. The final output is a polished presentation ready for the executives. This visual proves how mapping Copilot across multiple apps creates a seamless, high-speed content supply chain. Next, we map our data-heavy processes. What does this mean? It is the application of AI to turn raw, overwhelming data into immediate, actionable insights. The basics map directly to Microsoft Excel and the specialized analyst agent. Why do we map these processes? Because your financial and operational analysts spend too much time building complex formulas and not enough time making strategic decisions. How do we change this? A finance team can use Copilot in Excel to analyze supply chain data, identify cost-saving trends, and model quarterly revenue scenarios with a single prompt. For our deep dive, we look at the analyst agent included with Copilot. This agent is designed for precision and speed. It uses advanced chain-of-thought reasoning to iterate through problems, functioning much like a skilled data scientist. By mapping data analysis to Copilot, you transform your spreadsheets from static records into dynamic forecasting engines. This flow diagram illustrates the data mapping process. On the far left, we input raw sales data. This feeds directly into the Copilot in Excel node. Notice how Copilot splits the workload into two critical functions, analyzing trends to produce visualizations and modeling scenarios to produce financial forecasts. Both of these AI-accelerated outputs converge on the final node, data-driven decisions. Instead of spending a week building pivot tables to understand what happened last quarter, your team uses Copilot to instantly see the trends and predict what will happen next quarter, dramatically increasing your organizational agility. Our third core category is meeting and communication processes. What are we solving here? We are automating the triage and summarization of the massive volume of daily enterprise communications. The basics map seamlessly to Microsoft Teams and Microsoft Outlook. Why is this mapping so vital? Because inbox fatigue and back-to-back meetings cause critical information and action items to fall through the cracks. How does Copilot help? In Outlook, Copilot surfaces high-priority emails, summarizes lengthy threads, and drafts contextual responses in your tone. In Teams, it acts as your intelligent scribe, automatically recapping conversations, highlighting key decisions, and assigning action items. Our deep dive focuses on Copilot Chat. Copilot Chat doesn't just look at one app, it looks across your graph. You can ask it for a project update, and it will synthesize insights from yesterday's Teams meeting and this morning's emails into one clear summary, keeping your business moving without delay. Let's trace the communication workflow on your screen. Daily communications enter the system and are routed to either Teams Copilot or Outlook Copilot. On the Teams side, the AI tracks action items and decisions, ensuring strict project alignment. On the Outlook side, it summarizes complex threads, enabling much faster responses. Both of these pathways lead directly to the bottom line outcome, reduced overload and high accountability. By mapping your meeting and email workflows to Copilot, you ensure that every conversation translates into documented, tracked business progress rather than lost institutional knowledge. As your organization matures, you will need to map processes to more advanced tools. What are Copilot agents? They are task-oriented AI components optimized for specific, complex types of work. For the basics, let's look at the researcher agent, which specializes in deep discovery and knowledge synthesis. Why do we need a specialized agent? While standard Copilot is fantastic for quickly drafting an email, strategic planning sessions require deep, accurate synthesis of diverse intelligence which takes human workers hours to compile. How do we use it? You can invoke the researcher agent to pull recent market reports from the web, combine them with internal meeting notes from the graph, and compile a concise, structured briefing document. For our deep dive, it's important to know that agents use the Copilot orchestrator to combine advanced reasoning models with the Microsoft Graph. They don't just generate text, they provide citations, giving your leadership team the depth and factual accuracy required for high-stakes decision-making. This diagram illustrates how an advanced agent orchestrates a complex request. A user submits a complex request, which hits the Copilot orchestrator. The orchestrator recognizes the need for deep synthesis and routes the task to the researcher agent. Notice how the researcher agent splits its workflow. It simultaneously queries the web for external intelligence and queries the graph for internal knowledge. It then merges these two distinct data streams into a single, synthesized briefing, complete with citations. This shows how mapping a complex research process to the right agent transforms a multi-hour manual task into an automated, highly accurate output. When mapping a process, you must also decide on your execution strategy. Do you buy, extend, or build? What is this framework? It is the strategic decision of how much customization a specific business process requires. The basics are: you buy standard Microsoft 365 Copilot for everyday tasks like email summarization. You extend Copilot when you need it to interact with external business systems. And you build custom Copilots from scratch for highly regulated, proprietary processes. Why use this framework? Because it perfectly balances your need for speed to value against your need for custom control. How do we extend? We use Microsoft Copilot Studio, a low-code platform. For our deep dive, imagine you need Copilot to check inventory levels. You don't need to build a new AI. You use Copilot Studio to create a connector to your ERP system. Copilot can now securely query that external data, orchestrate the workflow, and return the answer within Teams, seamlessly extending its capabilities without heavy software development. Let's walk through this decision tree, which is essential for your IT and business leaders. When process mapping, ask, is this a standard M365 task? If yes, route left to buy M365 Copilot for immediate ROI. If no, ask, does it need to connect to an external CRM or ERP? If yes, route to extend using Copilot Studio. This allows you to integrate third-party data seamlessly. If the process is entirely unique and proprietary, you route right to build, creating a custom solution. This visual helps your organization avoid over-engineering simple problems, ensuring you deploy the most cost-effective and efficient solution for every mapped use case. Let's synthesize everything we've learned with a highly important, real-world use case. What does end-to-end process mapping look like? Imagine a compliance and operations team tasked with drafting and launching a massive new corporate policy. The basics: historically, this involved manual research, weeks of drafting, and painful email handoffs. Why map this to Copilot? Because we can shrink a multi-week project into a few days. How do we execute? First, the team invokes the researcher agent to gather the latest regulatory data. Next, they use Copilot in Word to instantly generate the first policy draft based on that research and existing templates. They then hold a sync meeting where Copilot in Teams automatically summarizes the feedback and assigns final review tasks. Finally, they use Copilot in PowerPoint to turn the approved Word document into a polished rollout presentation for the company. Our deep dive takeaway is this: by mapping the entire lifecycle of a business process to the respective Copilot solutions, you don't just speed up individual tasks, you break down organizational silos and drive massive, end-to-end operational efficiency. Let's follow the timeline of our real-world use case in this sequence diagram. In Step 1, the user tasks the researcher agent with gathering data, rapidly receiving synthesized insights. In Step 2, the user moves to Word, prompting Copilot to turn those insights into a structured, compliant draft. Step 3 happens during the review phase. Copilot in Teams tracks the conversation and assigns final tasks to the stakeholders. In the final step, the user opens PowerPoint and simply asks Copilot to convert the approved Word document into a rollout deck. This sequence visually proves that when you map business processes holistically across the Microsoft 365 ecosystem, Copilot acts as the continuous, intelligent thread that accelerates your team from initial concept to final execution.